the functional areas of the cerebral cortex. So there are number of functional centers in the cerebral cortex that identified by any numbers. So this identification is particularly called as Brodmann's chart. That means each center is named as in the number of portion. So as according to that number, that identifications of the functional area. So this particularly known as Brodmann's chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that, the numbers given to that particular centers, and totally it is in a chart. So this chart is called as Brodmann's chart. So the body is represents upside down in the motor area and as well as in the sensory area. So the body is represents upside down. The represents means the center of the sensation and as well as the motor. So that the representation, the centers, especially in the cerebral cortex region, that is usually called as upside down. That is in the sensory area and as well as in the motor area. That means first it starts from the medial surface of the hemisphere, then superior, then lateral and inferior. So like that the body is represented in the cerebral cortex region. So that is the portion is called as upside down, both aspect in motor area and as well as in the sensory area. So now we'll come to the brief functions of the brain. So the frontal lobe. So the frontal lobe is mainly having the centers, behavior, intelligence, memory and the movement. So these are the centers, especially in the frontal lobe. Similarly, in the parietal lobe, the intelligence, the language, the reading and most of the sensation is centers in the parietal lobe. So the occipital lobe is mainly vision center, the vision area, that is mainly in the occipital lobe. Then the temporal lobe, it has the center for behavior, hearing, memory, speech and association vision area. Then cerebellum, that is mainly a center for balance and coordination. Then the brain stem is very important. It has the sum of higher centers and also the important centers like maintaining the blood pressure, the breathing center, consciousness, heartbeat and swallowing. That is vital centers. You may call it as a vital center. It is just as a brief the centers in the brain. So when you go for the in details, for example, in the precentral gyrus or a postcentral gyrus or in the lower part of the central and pre and postcentral gyrus or in anterior portions like that. So usually the precentral gyrus, see, that is voluntary motor area, precentral gyrus, that means it is in front of the central sulcus. That is voluntary motor area, means controlling of the voluntary movement. In front of that, that is supplementary motor area, and in particularly prefrontal cortex, anterior part of the frontal lobe, that is elaboration of thought, memory and intelligence is there. Then in the lower part of the association area, that is supplementary area below portion, that is the speech area or it is Broca's area. Just above that speech area there is eye movement area, is called as eye field area, that is mainly in this frontal lobe. In the parietal lobe, most of the somatosensory, that means the sensory centers and the hand skills in associated with the speech area and also in associated with the hearing center, that is the main in the parietal lobe. In the occipital lobe, that is a bilateral vision, that means the vision of the both eyes and also contralateral vision is mainly in the occipital lobe. And also in the temporal lobe, mainly is the hearing, then it associated with the speech and as well as the memory centers. So by looking up this figure, see the primary motor area, that is called as precentral gyrus, the primary somatic, that is postcentral gyrus. So just below that postcentral gyrus, there is a primary auditory area. Then in front of that precentral gyrus area, that is supplemental and premotor. So like that will be having up the portions. Then lower part of the frontal lobe and anterior part of the temporal lobe is mainly association with the limbic center. So that is limbic association area. So again here in the posterior lobe, that you already known, the visual centers. So like that, so these are the centers which will be in the cerebral cortex. So now can have up the what will be the here. Usually the motor cortex itself is divided into three sub areas, each of which has its own topographical representation of muscles group and specific motor function. So the primary motor cortex, the premotor area and supplementary motor area. So here the motor and sensory, primary motor cortex, that is the related to these portions.